quickly.
The CEO of the Lady Fatima Charitable Trust, Mukhtar Karim, joins me now. Mukhtar, evening.
Good evening to you.
Well, we are living in unprecedented times due to the pandemic, which, of course, has led to some serious economic issues for the UK. Surely we would expect the government to make cuts to its foreign aid budget.
Absolutely not. And I'd qualify that by saying that what we are facing in this country is nothing in comparison to what the Yemenis are. Not only are we not calling for an immediate cessation to the conflict out there, we are actually continuing to arm the countries that are dropping bombs and making 24 million civilians, including innocent women and children, as well as men, dependent on food aid. Having done that, we've now got the audacity to try and remove food from their mouths by cutting this aid. This is completely unacceptable. And I'd call on the government to reverse that decision, recognizing that the pandemic here also exists in Yemen, but they do not have the vaccines, they do not even have the fuel supplies to move any food aid that is available to them. Cutting any food aid that is going to be made as a result of this decision is tantamount, to furthering the starvation. And as Anthony Guterres has rightly said, this is like a death sentence to millions of Yemenis, particularly, as my colleagues at Save the Children have mentioned, to the children, and the disproportionate effect of this on the young children and young men will be faced for generations to come. Like we've seen in other conflicts in the region, a lost generation is what I fear. And knowing the scale of the disaster, knowing that they lack access to basic necessities such as food, clean water, health supplies, taking this step to move food away, further away from them, is completely unacceptable.
And yet the British government says it's still one of the biggest donors and making huge efforts in terms of diplomacy to reach a ceasefire, to reach peace there. What do you make of the government's efforts to do that?
It would be a good start to stop arming the countries that are relentlessly continuing in the midst of this pandemic, which has raged globally for a year. The bombs have also continued to rain down. Finding food is far harder. For the residents in Yemen, the innocent civilians have to go further to find food. Fuel shortages have mean that food cannot be moved around the country as easily. And also, fear of the pandemic does not result in people staying at home, because you now have widowed mothers who are seeking food for their orphan children, going out regardless of the COVID risk, because it's a fear of COVID which may affect them, or the fear of starvation, which is most certainly affecting them. It is in that context that that our decision to halve the amount of aid, emergency aid, to these people should be considered. And the scale, to remind everyone, is 24 million people in the world's worst humanitarian crisis, with 400,000 children who may not see it to the end of the year. It is in that context that we ought to look at the government's response.
Mukhtar Karim, thank you very much indeed for joining us live on RT UK.
Thank you for having me.